Episode 2, we talk about overcoming adversity, working as a team, finding your North Star, and so much value. Got it. Former NRL players, played multiple games across multiple different clubs. You're going to love this episode. Let's go. Welcome, Anthony Mitchell. Thank you for taking the time to jump on the pod. How you going?
Good. No, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to have a chat.
Oh, keen. I went to the Nines at the start of the year and super impressed by the whole event and obviously growing year on year. But before we get to that, just do a bit of a background. So born in Brisbane, then moved up to Townsville. You spent your growing up there, went to Iggy Park. As I said before, I did a bit of work at Curwen for a few years. So it was a bit of a rivalry. How was that during your time? Was it a bit heated? Any special players in that time?
Yeah, no, geez, you done your research, man. Not that it's hard to do too much. I haven't done a whole lot, but no, there certainly was a rivalry there, and a healthy one at that. I mean, it's a small town, but rugby league obviously drives the area.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, I went to Ignatius Park as a high school student, and I think the two sort of pinnacle schools, certainly in Townsville or even in North Queensland, just outside of Mackay, I suppose, as well, are those two schools. And growing up playing footy there was full on, and you'd always count the numbers and the days down to playing against Curwen.
Yeah.
And then I was fortunate enough to go and work there a little bit later on. But yeah, it was almost like the Montagues and the Capulets sort of set up.
Yeah.
But in saying that, we played rep footy with a lot of those boys. A
Yeah.
lot of the North Queensland teams were made up of those two schools. So you found that you had similarities and some close relationships. I'm still really good close mates with boys who went to Curwen as well as Iggy Park. So it was good. It was different, and I still feel like it's very much the same with the two schools still now.
Yeah. It's good having that rivalry, I think. Coming from the Gold Coast, grew up on the Gold Coast, and now back here, there's so much footy on the coast. And one of the things I think is a bit that hurts that Townsville region a bit is there's pretty much the two schools. If you're not going on one of those two schools, you don't have the possibility of playing, Marsden, Keebra, PBC, all those schools. So it's good that they do have a bit of a rivalry. And, you get up for that game, you go down to the Black Hawk Stadium, and it's packed. There's people everywhere, so that's cool. So from there, did the AIS Tour of France, then you play a bit of 20s with the Eels, then you go to Roosters and you do Cowboys. So you've had the opportunity to play in three, NRL clubs. Sort of tell us about that experience, what you learned, what sort of skill sets you learned.
I think, I suppose going back to what you were saying with, schools around the coast, Keebra Park, PBC, then you go into Brisbane, you've got Wavell, Marsden, and I suppose even Redcliffe and a few of the teams in the sunny coast as well.
Yeah.
We had a bit of a garage band of kids coming from the north. We'd have to work doubly hard. I suppose the size and the stature of the boys up there compared to some of the boys who are down here. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're like full-grown men, and the systems that were in place prior to there being anything as big up north was always a battle. So I think for us, we had to work pretty tough. But in saying that, I think that it sort of added to the staunchness of coming from the north and wanting to play against, your Med East teams and those sides that were stacked with NRL players who played long careers. So I think, for me, it was one thing trying to make a rep side and then obviously make it on our way down to here, and then also to be noticed. I was in the Cowboys development squad as a young kid, but was too small in their eyes to be picked up, and I think I just went to work. It was funny now in hindsight, and I don't think I left any stone unturned when it came to going down to the park and basically just passing to a mango tree or kicking long or just manifesting in making a long range break sort of thing. So a lot of those things that people driving past would have laughed at sort of paid off in the end. Mm-hmm. I was lucky enough to be picked up by Para at Queensland Schoolboys Trials. They said that they were interested in bringing us down. I started my career there in SG Ball, played under 20s for a few years, and then played a fair bit of New South Wales Cup, and then was lucky enough to debut after doing pretty much a 3-year trade, essentially. Mm-hmm. I only played a handful of games at Para, but was probably more well-known for coming through Para. And then, went across to the Roosters, had a season there, which was completely different east to west in Sydney itself. Even the systems themselves were different. And then, I was super fortunate to live a childhood dream, and that was to go back up north and play at Dairy Farmers Stadium, the field that I used to do laps around as a young kid, and watch all these superstars that I used to love watching. And I think at the end of the day, it was just put down to having a drive and a want, and I sort of just wasn't taking no for an answer.
Yeah.
And it was long and it was hard, and I didn't play a million games, but I think the amount of games that I did do was due to the work that I had done. I was lucky to play with some of the best ever NRL players that never played, and I'm sure that you would have grown up and been around a lot of those kids who would have just had just ridiculous schoolboy careers or
Yeah.
into your 20s, but just didn't kick on, whether it be adversity or injury or a combination of both. They didn't make it through, but I think that I just leaned my head on really working hard and making sure that I was giving myself the best shot.
Yeah. So a few things that I took from that is that drive to want something. When you want something, you set it yourself. Don't take no for an answer. Just keep going, keep persisting. And I love that attitude and that mentality, because a lot of time we hit barriers. I'm like, oh, it's too hard. I'm not doing this. But
Yeah.
obviously, you show that if you keep working hard, things can happen. You did touch on there. You did different systems. So you went from the Parramatta system to the Roosters system to the Cowboys system. Was there any system, any part of the system? Obviously, Roosters are known for, they're a pretty proud club. Was there anything that stood out into that system or any other systems that really just sparked and was different to anything else?
I think it all depends on who the head coach is at the time. At any of the clubs that I was at, they were all, very smart with what they were doing, but it depends on how well you liked. And
Yep.
unfortunately, no matter what level, whether you're playing C grade out in the bush somewhere, or if you're playing A grade NRL, if the coach likes you and he believes in you, that is an added confidence for sure. But if you don't have that, then you're going to have to work to get it, and you're going to have to work to actually get that, I suppose, that respect and that appreciation from whether it be your head coach or training or any of the players in and around you. I think the systems themselves are very similar, and they still sort of are at the moment in the NRL. I think your sort of top 5 sides basically run the whole NRL, and then everyone else holds on for dear life.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to have gone to a Melbourne Storm, or I actually been at the Roosters when Robbo was there. I was there when Brian Smith was. But in saying that, Brian Smith taught me a lot about pursuing a craft and being smarter with how my body makeup is, and working on different areas of my game, and just gave extra time. So I think the difference with systems is actually the difference with relationships. So if you can actually earn the trust and respect of the coach, and I suppose not have the fear of what's going to happen if you were to ask the question and say, what do I need to work on? You're not going to get told exactly what they want you to work on. You'll get a very generic answer a lot of the time. However, I think for most part, if you've played an NRL game, you have the skills and the attributes to play a long career. And then the rest from there is a lot around your application after hours, and also how your relationships are.
That was great answer. Tell me about sort of the dressing room, the training environments. Was there any players in particular who just had, work ethic, just doing everything, first person there, last person to go home? Is anyone that stood out over your time?
I'll try and nail one or two at each club. Definitely at the Eels. Hindmarsh was always, a bloke that just went above and beyond with his training, and obviously that transpired onto the footy field itself. He was a freak. Luke Burt was a cut of the same cloth. Like some of those older boys when I was there were true students. And then, you flip it over and you go to the Roosters. Todd Carney and Mitch Pearce were exactly the same. Like, they obsessed over rugby league. They were so good at it, and they did all the extra work, given their colourful history off the field, depending on, what crowd you're around. When it come to footy and when it come to caring for their teammates and everything else, they were just top shelf. And then I suppose you can't go past a Jonathan Thurston. He would be out, 2 hours before a training session in the tropics, just kicking, wetting parts of the ground so he can learn how to spin a ball properly. So the things that he was pulling off on the field, and people be like, "Oh wow," that was consistent hours, like consistent hours away from the cameras, away from everyone else. Prior to a conditioning session, he'd be kicking and kicking and kicking, or be passing, and he was doing weirdly what I'm doing at Gill Park, manifesting, scooting the ball and running by myself, passing at mango trees. So
Yeah.
I think some of those guys were just amazing, and it takes a psychopath to be really, really good at rugby league, and that's what those guys were doing. They were very talented at it, but they also worked extremely hard, and I think I was one of many who were blessed to see it in true form.
Yeah. I think a lot of people underestimate what it takes to be the best sometimes. The couch coaches, you sit at home and like, oh yeah, like why didn't you pass the ball? Like why couldn't you do that 2-on-1 sort of thing? And they just don't understand. I wasn't fortunate enough to play NRL, so I can't speak from their perspective, but I can speak from a high performance environment. And as you said, the work that goes on behind the scenes is just, it's incredible. And there's a reason they're at the top. And as you said, like Thurston, like wetting the ground to practice that, like that's things you don't even hear of. So that's a great insight. So from after your NRL career, you're at the Cowboys, you go play for the Blackhawks. And I don't know if the record still stands, but you were the most capped Blackhawks player at one stage.
Yeah,
right. From my research anyway.
Yeah, okay.
So congratulations on that.
Fingers crossed.
So had you played 2 years there, 3 years there?
Yeah, 2 years there. 3 years, sorry. 15, 16, 17, I retired, yeah. And
So what was that the process of retirement? So you played footy for a bit now, and how did you know it was time to hang the boots up, and what was your mindset around that? Was it a sad feeling, or was it you knew you were ready? Talk us through that?
Well, I was actually ready after the Cowboys in 14. I'd finished up. I was just off footy, really. I was not keen on having another run around, but Christian Wolf was actually headed up there. They'd said that they'd been greenlit to have their first ever Q Cup side. I grew up in Townsville and loved the town, love my hometown. And he's one of my favourite mentors. I still speak to him quite regularly. He's now the assistant coach at the Dolphins. I'd learned a lot about my behaviour, how to be as a professional footy player, but also as a bloke, how you turn up, being punctual, I suppose not taking any shortcuts. So he had given us a call and said that he was heading back to coach and would I be interested. And I said, yeah, absolutely. Like I'd do anything for Wolfie. And from there, I was lucky to be part of that first inaugural team, and we had a red hot side in that first year. The Cowboys got broken up into 3 parts. Initially, when I went back to the Cowboys, it was just the Northern Pride and the Mackay Cutters, and I went back to the Cutters when I was there as a player. And then Blackhawks come in, and normally they try and put a heap of their good players to a team that they know won't play. I'm sure that there's a stack of Broncos who are signed with Burley who will never play. Reece Walsh is probably with them, or Tino's with the Tweed Seagulls, and they won't go back there, but they're named. We got them. We got Ray Thompson, we got Robbie Louie, we got Glenn Hall.
I think Jerome Hughes was playing there for a bit.
Jerome came up from the coast actually, and I think Wolfie's brother actually got him onto Christian and said, bring this kid up. He's very good. And he's exceptional. Like he is so silky with the ball, does stuff you just can't see. As a 9-2, you sort of can preempt or try and predict, but there's blokes like him, Pierce, Jonathan Thurston, where they'll be on one side, that it's a 3-on-2, but he calls it on the long edge for some unknown reason. You have no idea, and all of a sudden you scored a try, and it's been a 70-meter break because he's just set it up properly.
Yeah.
Went to the Hawks. We lost to the bloody Ipswich Jets in the grand final in their first year, so it would have been a Cinderella story.
Yeah.
But then stayed around for 2 more years and retired in 2017.
So obviously you said you were already thinking about retirement a few years earlier. Let's sort of transition to business. Did you have a background in business? So I'm going to cut back. You're doing the Nines Premier. That's sort of why we're sort of having this conversation, in the sense we're looking at the world of business. So if anyone's wondering, you ran the Nines comp's been going for 2 years now. As I said, I went this year and it was super successful. So bit of an insight. But now let's go back. Did you have a bit of an insight into business when you were playing football? Like, was there any dressing room conversations with your mates? Oh, what if we start a business? As everyone has, sort of, give me an insight into that.
I think when the 20s came in 2008, it was almost a prerequisite that you had to study or work. And when I was at Para, they gave us a job at the club running ARL development, working with kids, and also doing my Cert 2 and 3 in sport and rec. And I was always, I loved doing sporty stuff. I love going into schools. I love doing mentoring. I think just elements of that growing up and going down that path sort of led me towards it. When I was at the Roosters, I ended up starting a primary education degree. I did two semesters at ACU, and then I transferred up to Townsville, and I stopped. I wanted to focus on trying to make the NRL side up there, but then I just opened up a PT business as well. I think that stems from my dad. He just has huge work ethic and was always, you've got to be doing something else, which is something that I always suggest to kids, regardless of them, whether I think they're going to play NRL or not, is just have something as a backup plan. And if you have it as a backup plan and it doesn't work out, at least you've tried something that you don't like or that you won't go on and try and pursue. But if you do enjoy it, you could possibly turn it into something that you really do enjoy and you like long term. So I think going back, doing PT, running, group fitness, organising little events, it's sort of just put me in a position to, I suppose, create. And mind you, like with the Nines, I'm not in it alone. We started off with 3 mates who I work with.
Yeah.
And then we added on 2 more guys because you got to, if you're going to try and build it to where you think it can be, you got to get the right skill sets involved and the right personalities. And I think that's sort of something that we've done right. And yeah, I think that, I suppose if you wanted me to, I can just start from with the Nines itself. I was literally just sitting in the office over lunch with a friend of mine who's in it with me. And, it was late in the year, and there was maybe 2 or 3 round games left of the NRL.
What year is this, sorry?
This would have been in 20, not last year, obviously, because it would have been back into 21.
Okay.
So first year was in 22. Oh, no, it would have been 22. It was back into 22. And I think there was just a rerun on of some highlights while we were sort of in the lunchroom having some food. And I was getting all salty because the footy season's almost over. There's nothing to watch. And with my day job now, we run footy carnivals all the time, so we have relevant experience in that area. And he sort of said, "Well, why don't we have a crack at running our own footy carnival? And we'll have a go at it." I was also very lucky to play in the first ever NRL Nines, which sparked the interest hugely, and it was awesome. Like the Auckland Nines was one of the best things I'd been part of. I was super fortunate to even win one as well in the first year. But they just did all this fun stuff around it, like festival feeling. There's music going everywhere. There's food. Kids and families are having so much fun. So we thought, well, we'll run as a little pilot, and we'll just put together 8 teams, run it at a suburban ground, and we'll just add in some things like popcorn, face painting for kids, and some activities. And what we thought might work is we just put on a broadcast as well and film some of the games. After the wash-up of it, we ended up having 12 teams in there. Had about 20 ex-NRL guys have a run around. Probably 1,000 people came through over the course of the day to have a watch. And then on our YouTube, we had noticed that there was nearly 1,000 hours watched within a week of 9-a-side. They're not even 20 minutes long. So either the boys were watching their games on repeat, which is highly likely.
Just quickly, would you nominate anyone who might be watching their games?
Zeb Taylor for sure. had to have. Greg Bird, same. No, it was really interesting. Like we thought we'll just run it as a concept and see how it goes. And all those little elements. There was an appetite for people to watch the games. There was an appetite for ex-NRL guys and current local league guys to play. And then people want things to do on that public holiday long weekend. So we just wanted to try and step things up that little bit more in the second year and do almost like a bit of a relaunch. And that's sort of what brought us to how we had this year's tournament.
I love one of the things I just picked up then. you didn't focus all on the sport. I love how you sort of said from the nines experience, so you got to play, and it was off-field stuff that made the environment, the festival environment, and I think that's really cool when people do events and they see the rugby, like, oh yeah, rugby league's cool, and you're watching online. But if you're there, I went there and you had the food stalls and like all the tents down the game, and you could just walk past, and you could walk past any tent, and as you said, the NRL players, there were plenty of them, and they were getting involved and giving back, and I thought that was really cool. Obviously, we mentioned a few people before, like there's Willie Masons, there's Greg Burr, there's Alex Glenn, and they're all interacting, and it's a chance for them to, you talked about them connecting with each other, but also connect with the community and the audience around there. Another little thing that I thought was pretty cool is you had the little kids footy field on the side. I walked past there and there was kids just belting each other and getting into it. So that was cool. Where do you see the Nines going from here? Obviously, you've done 2 years, just grown. I didn't go the first one to the second one. It's grown heaps, because I can't think of a better word. And what are the goals for next year?
I think, once again, it's hard to tell because we just didn't anticipate that it was going to get as big as it did. Mm-hmm. But I think that just gives further validation to that it's a good concept, and that there is definitely players that want to come back and have a run around. There's definitely hundreds of kids who want to sit in the kids' basically open creche zone while their parents sit up on the hill, watch some footy, eat some food. Yeah. So I think that we're going to try and step up in those areas. We want to retain it. Most of those teams who played this year, we're not going to be a competition that looks for high participation. We want quality teams that enter, and tournament style teams only, not club sides with red tape. We want to lean on these guys, whether you're an ex-NRL player or a local leaguer who understands how to create your own team, own your own team, and essentially have that entrepreneurial spin on it. Make cool merchandise, sell, some of your gear there. Think of ways that you can reconnect with the community, but also have return of investment. Matty Shrama, who comes in here quite regularly, he put in a team because he wanted to give back, obviously, to the Gold Coast area. But also it's a return of business for him too. You call it the Shrama Group, and it's highly successful buyers agency. And for him, he was able to reconnect with a lot of players who he played with, bring up some guys who he had met before, but also give back to Gold Coast. And then you have travelling teams as well from Sydney, gym teams with Travis and Brad Takarangi from Reborn. You got Alex Glenn, who just had a star-studded lineup,
wasn't it?
Which was unbelievable. But this was it's funny how it was playing up almost to the personalities of these guys. They are community people. They are well connected. They've got a handy group of players that want to have a run around at the right time of the year, and a lot of them hadn't been given the opportunity to do so on their own terms. And I think for us, it's about retaining those guys and then including a handful more. We've had some really good conversations with some teams for next year, which is interesting. But then I suppose that whole hospitality side of it, we want to make it accessible for people to fly in and go, oh, we're actually going to travel to the Nines. A little bit like you would with Magic Round. Yep. I know Magic Round gets a bit of I suppose the lens of it's a bit of a boozer. Like, a lot of people travel because they're going to stay on Caxton Street pretty much the whole time and maybe have a glance of a couple of footy games. Yeah. Whereas for us, we want to make sure that there's we double down on the kids zone. We want to make sure that there's things there for the women and the mothers, and, I suppose little activations for them to be able to access that's as fun as, watching the footy. Yeah. And then I suppose, at the end of it, look at, some good live music, whether it be like a red hot DJ for people to come down and listen to and be around. So there's all these grand ideas. We just have to put them all in place. It's going to take us quite literally the year to put together, but it'll be worth it. It definitely was this year. I know that these guys would have heard me a million times hammering on about how difficult it was in different areas and how long and grinding the process can be when you have to, contact players and teams, and you're working on their timeline as well. Like sometimes you get busy. These guys and girls have, families and they can be taxed at different parts. So you got to be gentle with how far you push. Yep. But for the most part, once the competition was done, everyone was stoked. They were really, really keen on coming back again. So, yeah, we're hopeful to just run it that little bit better. And if it's that little bit better, then that's one step forward again.
Perfect. I think you obviously spoke about getting better, and I think if for a keen eye, you listed some key strategies that you've incorporated to get more people there, and not just cater to the footy players, but cater to the spouses and the kids. It looks like it's going really well. What's under the surface? What are some of the issues and the struggles that you face early on that maybe appeared once or they reappeared for someone who's starting in the world of business? What are some of those key things you can help them give an insight to?
I think getting comfortable with the fact that you'll be disheartened. Like, you'll be disheartened whether a team says no or whether you've bitten off more than you can chew. But I think if you do have that true north, if you know where you're trying to go, that's obviously your guiding star. And if you don't, then actually sit down and figure out what that business plan looks like. And it may be very ugly to start with, and it may be very small. Ours certainly exploded and further than what we thought we were going to see. But I think that was because we were just hell-bent on getting it towards where we thought it was going to get. And I think you don't take anything personally in business. Like, if you can settle on the fact that you don't take things personally, it's a lot easier to bounce back. Practice gratitude every single day. The fact that you're able to actually try and launch anything. If you're able to try and launch a business or have a look at, I suppose, anything that you want to try and invest your time in that may be to the benefit of others, and if it's mildly successful, that's great. A lot of people don't get an opportunity to do that. I know that we certainly count our lucky stars every day when people will go, oh, how's the Nines? I had a watch of it, or I came down like yourself, and you sort of went, you're hearing it from different lenses. Anytime we're taxed or tired or disheartened, we just try and remind ourselves that we're doing this because it's a fun concept, and we want it to remain that way. It gets obviously a little bit more serious when you're doubling down, but once again, remind yourself that you're one of very many, not very many, globally, who are able to sort of just get off the couch and run a business, essentially. Like, I mean, you're doing similar at the moment. You just from scratch have started a podcast, and it's super exciting. It's probably tough at times trying to catch clowns like me who got kids and try and run around. Yeah. But I think it's all perspective, and if you genuinely think about what your outcome is and the fact that you're actually having a crack at it, that's as good as it can be.
That's great. I love that North Star, that true North you spoke about. It's your reason why. I spoke about this briefly last week with Reece Duke on the podcast, and it's finding your why. And he gave a similar response in sometimes it's bigger than you. You got to find the reasons that can get you out of bed at 5 a.m. You're going to find the reasons when you don't want to go and send the text message or have the phone call. You got to find a deeper reason to why you're going to do it. I want to quickly touch on your day job as Clontarf. For those of you who don't know, can you give a brief introduction into what Clontarf is?
Yeah, so Clontarf is just it's an engagement program for First Nations boys in high schools, mostly high schools, and we incentivise reasons for the boys to turn up, stay at school, finish school, and go into a job.
Perfect. I was at Cohen, I spoke about before, up in Townsville, and they had the Clontarf program there, and it's so rewarding to see. Up there, it's a very high Indigenous percentage of students there, and just seeing someone being able to there and give back. You go to the Clontarf room and they're playing table tennis or they're helping them with their homework, and it's awesome to see. What are some of the messages you're trying to convey to the kids as when you're working with them, and you sort of touched before about a lot of things you're teaching? What are some of those key messages you're trying to teach?
Definitely build routine. So without knowing it, young and old, adults, kids, you're trying to embed in a routine that gives you a more fulfilling life. And I think obviously education is a key to success, and turning up to school, getting that education is the first step. And then I suppose trialing a variety of different industry. If you're never ever going to be fixed on the first thing you want to do. You're going to bounce between 10 different jobs in the first few years if you haven't had a crack at it during school, if you haven't found where you want to gravitate towards. We also try and embed, healthy living. So getting up in the morning and going along to morning trainings, eating a healthy, nutritious sort of meal and lifestyle. And then we also want to make sure that you're giving back to community as well. So a lot of the times, the way that we build our boys' resumes is actually get our young fellas to go into the community itself and help, whether it be planting trees or setting up at NAIDOC weeks or, cooking a Mother's Day breakfast. Those little things build that self-esteem up. And I think that over the course of their journey, if they're in a Clontarf school, a lot of those boys pick up a lot of that skill set from there. We're very fortunate that we've got a big tier of boys now who come from great homes, whose parents understand all that, but we just assist in amplifying it as well. And they, in the same, come into the room and they assist in motivating and pushing boys who are probably that little bit further behind in different areas. So yeah, I think it's a highly sophisticated program, and it's not just a sporting program. We've got kids who hate rugby league, but I think sport itself brings a place for everyone, whether you're the manager of the team, you're handing out the jerseys, you're getting the water bottles together, you're making sure the markers are out, whistles are ready to go. So for us, we try and include all of our young people in every attribute we possibly can.
Yep.
And then we celebrate all that success in the academy room, as you were mentioning before, with the ping pong table. Not only that, there's, our attendance boards up on the wall, and there's photos of all the rich activity, their player profiles, and I suppose where their work ready documents are at as well. So there's all these little sophisticated ways on how we attract the boys into the school to go to their classes, and then before school lunches and after school, they can access their mentors.
Cool. I love when you talk about the routine. I think the day and age, for my Instagram anyway, it's what's your morning routine? Are you doing the ice baths? But routines are so important, and I think as adults we sometimes overlook the importance of eating right, exercising, doing those daily things. You teach it to the kids, but sometimes you go home like, might just snack and get a burger. But yeah, I just love the importance of teaching routines at that age. And if they could teach even just normal curriculum, I think as a teacher, we don't even teach the basic living skills. And kids come to school. I was in school the other day. One kid had a V and chips for brekkie, and you expect them to go and learn maths next period. It's like your energy's gone if you're having a V and chips. So just the little things like that, I think, make a big difference.
Yeah, I think simplicity itself, and that's just not even young people. It's everyone looks for that quick win. Or that fad diet, or the ice baths. Like ice baths are great. Like I'm not against ice baths at all. But I think get up a little bit earlier, have some water, go for a walk or stretch or a run, do some sort of physical activity, try and eat something that's not from a packet. And before you know it, if you're doing that over a day, a few days, a week, a month, you start to feel better. It's very easy to lean on different reasons why you don't have the things that you want in terms of your health, mental clarity, whatever it is. But I think if you're starting solely as if you just were to be dropped onto a deserted island, what would you do? You would try and find food. You'd try and find something healthy. If you wouldn't just quickly grab your phone and have a scroll to make yourself feel better. Yeah. I think routine is simple and it sucks and it's boring. Yeah. But if you want to feel happier long term, then definitely start with that with a good routine.
100%. I don't think it's coming back, but it's interesting the emphasis placed on it at the moment. I think it's honestly, from my perspective, it's come from Huberman. It's taken a scientist on Instagram to tell people, if you see sunlight in the morning, if you drink water, it's going to make you feel better. It's like, were they not already aware of that the healthy habits that you teach from Healthy Harold in year 5?
Yeah, that's right. Where's the giraffe when you need him? He's got to tell me that. But it's, I mean, you're a teacher, so you teaching nowadays would be, and I don't know, you tell me the answer, but is it completely different to what teaching would have been like, say, 15 years ago?
Yeah, 100%.
Due to tech, do you think?
Yeah, due to tech. I think at the moment, Queensland's just banned mobile phones, and that's very interesting to see in a school environment. You're not allowed to have phones at school at all.
Yeah, I saw that actually.
That's gone way better than I thought it would. I thought it would be hell, but the kids they're playing handball, they're playing footy, they're now running through the school, which is annoying, but they're interacting with each other. And obviously, I was a teacher 15 years ago, but when I grew up, it's definitely been a lot different. I think the curriculum is very heavy and That's a conversation for another day. But there are some benefits, and there's some good teachers doing some good things. So fingers crossed it moves forward in a positive way.
For sure.
Just before we do wrap up, your younger self or anyone who's, maybe they're playing footy, maybe they're going to world of business, what's a piece of advice you'd like to tell them?
One I always try and lean on is luck favors the prepared, and you don't know when it's ready to show up. You could be doing the same thing, whether it be practicing a kick, doing extra study, whatever it may be, waiting to get that shot onto a team. If you're not prepared, you'll shoot yourself. You'll be so filthy that you just weren't ready to actually take on that challenge, and you just don't know when it's going to happen. So you're better off just staying on that grind. And I think even if that opportunity doesn't show up in some other area of your life at some other time, the amount of hours you put into that has taught you discipline for you to apply it somewhere else. People ask me different things about what I might have learnt within footy. And one of the ones I always lean on is I went on so many army camps. They were horrible. They were so horrible. Not once did I lean on that, doing back-to-back sets of 6 while George Burgess or Sam Burgess running at you. No chance. I didn't think, I've ran 40 kilometres with a pole on my shoulder. I can tackle him now. Not at all. But now with 3 kids, working a full-time job, having a side job that I really enjoy, sleep deprivation, trying to figure out my routine when it falls out of line, I go, oh, actually, no, I can get through this. I have grounded out. And I think people undermine or are very quick to give up if they're not seeing short success. And I'm definitely guilty of that as well. But I think if you're staying prepared and you're staying on the grind and you're staying true to, whatever task that may be, it will show up in some way, shape or form. It may not be, playing State of Origin, but it may show up that you're going to coach a team that plays State of Origin, or it might be that you're now doing a university degree and you are now the Queensland schoolboys coach, which you're going to be next year, or something on the lines of that. I think, stay true to it and stay on the hustle. You just never know when that opportunity will pop up.
I love that. There's a picture that always comes up for me. I don't know if you've seen it. There's 2 people and they're mining.
The mining, totally.
Yeah, I love that one. If anyone hasn't seen it, the dude up top, he's way behind, but he's hustling, he's grinding. At the end of the road, there's some diamonds, and he's still got a bit to go. You got the person down the bottom, and he's this far away. He's nearly got it, and he's turning around and he's quit because he doesn't want it bad enough. So I think that's great advice for the young people.
That's one of the all-time photos too.
It's great.
It tells so many stories, and it's just a cartoon, right?
Yeah.
And you can see that they're both hooking in, and they're at the same destination point, but one's still going and one's gone. And that happens with every part of life. There's people, particularly young kids, get very frustrated very early and young that they don't have the skills, the height, the size, the attributes that some of these kids get to play, in rep footy. Some kids might be far smarter in the classroom. Some adults don't learn as quickly as well, so they get disheartened and they distract themselves easily. Whereas just stay on the task, and before you know it, the guy turning around is everyone who you'll surpass at the 11th hour. And it doesn't happen beforehand. Unfortunately, it doesn't. You'll still see that guy who you hate, running next to, he's done another 100-meter try and he's getting all the glory, but he won't do the work after hours. He won't do it for 3, 4, 5 years, and then before you know it, you've got, some of these NRL players who, Jerome Hughes, good example. Like he debuted quite late. Yeah. Now, it's hard to deny him not being one of the most influential halves in the last 10 years. Like, he's been exceptional. Yeah. And he could have easily have gone, Tyrone Roberts has gone and done this, and he's now at the Titans, or, there would have been a stack of other guys that would have surpassed him, and injury and everything else. But now he's got diamonds all in his teeth and his hands.
He's a New Zealand halfback.
Winning premierships.
Yeah, it's a tough gig. It's interesting that because Jerome and I went to school together, and I remember his first training session, he came and everyone's like, who's this new kid? And he blitzed it. I did a one-on-one set, to tackle him, new kid, come on. And
take
he
it easy
dropped me on my head. I'm just like, everyone's like, this kid's pretty good, eh? So it's great to see him killing it. I just wanted a few things I've taken from this conversation. I've been doing little notes, some key points. I love you started with the overcoming adversity. You talked about how you weren't the biggest person, but you work hard, and we touched on it again at the end that if you keep working hard, things will start to show. Having a backup plan, you on your journey to the nines, you did your personal training, you did a few other courses, and it wasn't one thing all in. I mean, you definitely have to go all in, but you sort of had a backup plan. You're learning different skills as you went. Having a team, you spoke about, you don't run the nines by yourself. There's a fair few of you. The importance of having a team around you to support you. And I think I like the true north, knowing what your why is and the reason that you're getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and the reason you're doing the hard session and the reason you're doing 12-hour days. And I think that's really important. And I think it's a great message to share. And just want to thank you for coming on. It's been a great chat. And where can people find you?
Nice Premier League. Yeah,
Nice Premier League.
Yeah, jump on it. That's pretty much all of our social handles at the moment. We'll start firing up our podcasts in the next month. We want to try and have some more consistent stuff throughout the year as we lead up into next year's tournament. But yeah, it's definitely building. We've been a little bit quiet over the last month on any of those social media sort of pages, but that's not to say that we aren't like a duck on water at the moment, trying to squeeze everything in. So yeah, you'll see us there, and we'll be back very big.
Perfect. Looking forward to it. Everyone out there, thank you for listening. Episode 2, we got 38 views on the first one, 42 this one. Let's go. Can't wait.
Thanks Ben.
again.
No, cheers.